Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting live from our Sanctum Sanctorum in Venice, California. This is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our producer, Michael. And today we are going to start off our February theme of love and the paranormal style. And we have Holly Lindblom here with her son, Dylan, and she's going to be sharing ghost stories with a love twist. But before we get started, Michael has some announcements.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for supporting our show so much. Our subscribers are doing great. We've picked up a whole bunch this week, closing in on 600 now. So we're thrilled and excited. And if you love our show, please subscribe because we absolutely love having you guys. And check out all the information on our website. Sorry, losing my voice. sixthsensesociety.com, SIXTH, all spelled out, and you can find all the info on the show there. We have a couple of great guests coming up and great shows for the rest of the month. Next week, we have our good friend Zalima, who's going to talk about love spells and love magic and, you know, the ethics around love magic and some of our favorite love spells and, of course, what happens when they go tragically wrong. So please tune in for that. That'll be a kind of our Valentine's Day special. And then we're going to have Merle Yost back, our therapist, and we're going to follow up on the show he did on having good boundaries. And Krista did the workshop with him, so they'll be talking about that. And he's a great guest, so we're really looking forward to that. And then we're going to end the month again with Spell It Out, our new segment where Krista will talk about whatever Krista wants to talk about. So that's exciting too. As I said, subscribe to our show. That really helps us a lot, and we're grateful. We will have the live chat, so if you guys have questions, let us know, and we'll pass them along during the show. And I'm not going to take up too much time because I'm excited about the topic, and we always have a lot of fun with this one, which is the ghost love stories, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to kick it back to you guys, and let's have a great show.
Great. Thanks, Michael, and welcome back, Holly and Dylan.
Hello.
Thank you for having me back. I'm so excited to be here.
We loved having you the first time, both of you.
Great.
So, what would you like to start with?
Well, let's just talk about love in general.
Okay.
Love can make you go crazy. Right? And that's what happens a lot of times. These people go crazy. They lose it. They commit murder, suicide, go off on these crazy adventures across, I'm one to speak of that. I've done it myself. Mm-hmm. But we can go right into the Russellville girl, which is in Kentucky. And Dylan's been to this house. This is right next to the Maple Grove Cemetery in Russellville. And as the story goes, was a teenager. She was set to go to a dance that night. And what ended up happening was a storm came through. And back east, people don't go out in the storms. It could be crazy, right. Tornadoes, flash floods, you name it. You can get serious, go into a ditch, Well, the parents said she couldn't go. So she went upstairs to the bathroom, got in the tub. Supposedly she cursed God, was mad at her father, and lightning struck her and killed her dead.
Wow.
In the bathroom where there was like 3 windows surrounding the tub. Okay. And this became sort of like a roadside attraction because the image of the girl was in the window.
Wow.
You could see a silhouette of a girl. So back, thousands of people started showing up to see this from hearing it, that in the 1920s they ended up covering it and painting it over. Now, the guy that lives in the Sexton house, because that's what it's called, it says it right on there, and it's actually on my Instagram. There's pictures of me on the porch. A sexton is a caretaker of a cemetery, and the current owners haven't really experienced anything else per se, but there's still a lot of looky-loos coming by. So what he did was he put a cardboard cutout of a girl on the one side that they didn't paint over. So if you go by there, that's in Russellville, Kentucky, you can see that. and the window is still painted. And there's stories where he tried to chip it away, but it would have been so, much work that he left it.
Wow.
But he did, to appease her, put a cardboard cutout over.
It's crazy. We were talking earlier how the teen energy is so powerful to begin with. And then
Right.
also storms in general, because we're made of water,
Right.
affect us all.
Yeah.
That. So it was, in that moment, maybe it was like a little bit of a telekinesis kind of
Maybe,
thing.
like
and
Carrie.
Like
we were
Carrie
saying.
and Stephen King.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
unfortunately very tragic and
Yeah.
sad,
Yeah.
but very dramatic story.
Very dramatic.
Yeah.
So that's one of them, and you could just drive by, see that. That's got like a very old cemetery, 1800 cemetery, Victorian, and Civil War soldiers there and stuff. And it's a spooky cemetery. It has. You've been to it. You know what I'm talking about.
I've seen
There's
How big is
weird-
it?
A couple acres.
Couple acres.
Yeah, there's even like a whole little baby section. It's
Oh,
just
yeah,
creepy.
the baby sections
I
are
don't
very-
like those.
I
And
know.
it's just really, really creepy. There's weird ones that look like little witches and it's really different.
Well, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's actually the pictures are on my Instagram. So they're on there of that. Okay. And then the other one that I have personally been to is the Weatherford Hotel. Now, that's the one that's in Flagstaff, Arizona. Okay, that's up when you're going up towards the 40. And people have stayed there like Wyatt Earp, William Randolph Hearst, Teddy Roosevelt. It's really known. It was a really booming place. Well, back in the heyday in the Wild West, supposedly they say that a young couple that just got married went there on their honeymoon. Well, they were massacred in their room.
Oh my God.
In room, it was 54. And to this day, they don't rent it out.
Was it a random murder?
You know what? They don't know. It was
They
like
never
totally
solved it.
unsolved.
Oh,
What?
that's a cold case then.
Yeah, and it was in the Wild West. And funny thing about that one was I went there for lunch because I'm always going to all those places, and we started talking to the people, and they actually took us in the room and it's actually a laundry room storage closet now. And they will not
That seems
rent
disrespectful.
it out. It is. And there's just like a laundry man and all this storage. And they took us all through there. And yeah, they were murdered right there. And they still have occurrences to this day, they said. That's why they don't rent it out.
Were they a young couple, older
Yeah,
couple?
they were a young couple. People still see them. They'll appear, manifest on people's, at the end of the beds, or they'll see them walk through walls, or they actually see, and they never say they're like in their wedding dress or their groomsmen attire, but the fact that they see this couple together.
Right.
Right. And then we got a weird story while we were there. This guy pointed out that in the 60s, a woman had jumped out of the window on LSD. Too. So there's like a couple hauntings at the Weatherford, but that's the loved one. They went there for their honeymoon, and how sad is that,
I always
So,
wonder
yeah.
if when couples die together, if they're both aware that they're both dead, or if there's a
Like
process that...
Beetlejuice? Like,
Like Beetlejuice?
yeah. They're in their house and they don't want people there, and I wonder if they do that.
Yeah.
Because that's it's a question.
Yeah.
We don't know, and yeah, I always think of Beetlejuice like in that sense.
Well, they have, when in hospitals, there's lots of stories of people when they die or about to die. And I experienced it, like my grandmother, I think I talked about this on another show, is that about a week before my grandmother was dying, and we kind of knew she was dying, she would look up and talk to her sister Lily, who she never mentioned in life anymore.
Right.
And she would talk to her like she was there. I mean, she
Right.
Lily, and she did it a lot. And then there's a lot of research where that happens quite frequently.
Yeah.
And so I wonder when you, like, if you die together, like, or people that die, like, in a crash or something, if there's some kind of comfort in a sense, or if
Maybe.
you're aware of each other. I don't know if
Maybe.
you're aware of each other, though.
Yeah, I would think so.
I would hope that love would help.
I-
The concept of love, whatever
the
kind of
comfort
love.
of that, and the just knowing that you didn't die alone.
Right, you didn't die alone.
You didn't die alone. You died with, yeah. I mean, because a lot of these stories are just sad. Okay, do you want to go into George Reeves' Superman?
Yeah, oh yeah, sure.
He watched 1950s George Reeves' Superman, right?
Sure.
I mean, he was an amazing guy, you guys. He was in the Olympics, and he actually was so into his character that he quit smoking because he didn't want the kids to see him smoking. Did you
Wow.
know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, he really did.
He wanted to be a real
He
role
wanted
model.
to be a real role model. So he had quit smoking, and he was just, he was in the Olympics in 1932. It's a really kind of sad story about George Reeves. Who he thought was his actual father was his stepfather. And his mother was married to him for 15 years. And instead of the mother just owning the fact that they got a divorce, no, she said that he committed suicide. She lied to George Reeves. She lied to her son. And he didn't speak to her through the whole 40s.
Wow.
How
did he find out then?
I guess he looked him up, or he found out. He found out eventually that he was alive, that they did get a divorce. And, so George had that's kind of a sad upbringing. But so what had actually happened with George Reeves was he was dating the head of the MGM. Her name is Tony, and I believe it's Maddox. Let me look it up and make sure that I'm getting it right. Yeah, Tony Maddox. She was an ex-showgirl. So she was married to the manager of MGM, and she was just kind of a crazy chick, I guess. So he broke that off. She was kind of fatal, and he started dating this one girl. Her last name is Lemon. And 3 months before he supposedly killed himself, he had 3 automobile incidences that happened. One almost took his life. When he took the car down to the garage, they said that all the fluids had been pumped out. Yeah. And other weird, occurrences like that. He had death threats. He had all these things. Well, he started pointing out, it's going to be Tony Maddox if anything happens to me. And he was verbal about this, telling people. Well, the night that, he supposedly killed himself, he got into a fight with Lemon, his girlfriend, and there was somebody else there that had mentioned, and this is in a lot of books, that said, he's going to probably go up there and kill himself. Well, that one shot rings out upstairs, they go up, and supposedly he killed himself. And that's, they want to say that is not what happened. It's more than that. It's the MGM, the guy, he was jealous, the ex-lover type of thing. So yeah, that's still a mystery. Right. They don't know what really happened to George Reeves. They say, on the death certificate, of course, suicide, but there's so many stories behind that one. That's
a strange twist, considering the fact that he thought his father had committed suicide and he hadn't.
Yes.
So in a way, it could be a shadow of that everyone thinks. Yeah. He committed suicide, but somebody killed him possibly.
Exactly.
Especially because of the car thing.
Yeah, and you could look that up. That's all, documented and everything. And that house up there in Benedict Canyon, it's not that far from the Houdini Mansion. And it's a creepy house when you drive by it. It's got the 2 little windows on the front, and there's some kind of energy there. And like I've told you before on the thing, I'm not psychic, I don't feel nothing, but there is some kind of energy at that house. It feels scary in a way.
Right.
So I don't think he's happy.
Well, I would think you would not be happy if you didn't have the truth about your death. That's a possibility.
Yes, of course.
That would make me, uneasy.
And have the haunting, the occurrence of it, because they want the truth to come out. Yeah. A lot of these ghosts, I think, do that.
I totally do that. And my husband and I, we watch a lot of cold case files and homicide, and there's a lot of really, really sad stories out there.
Yeah. There is.
And it is kind of satisfying when they can actually close a case, even if it takes 20 years or so.
Yeah, because of the DNA evidence now that we have, that we can go into that they didn't have back then, if there is any left.
Yes.
When they exhume or, stuff like that. But, yeah, poor George Reeves.
Yeah, that is pretty sad. I didn't know about the smoking. That's pretty amazing that he quit smoking. He took it seriously.
He took it serious to be Superman, right? Yeah. Okay. We could talk about the next one I have. Oh, okay. So we were talking about this earlier. The Doheny Mansion, Greystone Manor. That's one of the ones that's up in Beverly Hills. You can walk up to it. You can roam the grounds. All these old movies were filmed there. Death Becomes Her, Indecent Proposal, X-Men, Gilmore Girls.
I like that show.
Right, everybody does. Entourage, Flowers in the Attic, Dynasty, Luke and Laura's Wedding, from that whole, soap opera era. Austin Powers, Witches of Eastwick. Well, what had happened there was the murder-suicide of Doheny Jr., and with Hugh Plunkett and Ned Doheny. And the tale goes that they were involved in that. Have you ever heard of the Teapot Dome scandal?
No.
So this was before Watergate. This was a huge government scandal where they were taking bribery for oil on government land. And supposedly Ned paid You could go into more of it because we only have like so much time, but he wired a lot of money into this to get the oil to be drilled on government
Teapot
land.
Dome scandal?
Yes.
Oh, I heard about that in school.
Okay, well, so that's what this is all about. This is what these two partners, these two men, some allege they were lovers. They spent a lot of time together. You know, back in the 20s, no one talked about that. That was very hush hush, you know. Well, Hugh Plunkett showed up one night, and the wife, Lucy Doheny, didn't think anything of it because he was always at the house. He was like a welcome door type of thing, like, you know, just come in, whatever. Well, he went into the extra bedroom, the guest bedroom, and now this is where the story gets weird. They don't know if Ned committed suicide or if Hugh shot him. But Hugh Plunkett, I guess, ran back in the study after Lucy came out and shot himself.
Oh, wow.
But for 2 hours, they didn't call the police. And Lucy says that the medical examiners moved the body and the gun was found underneath Hugh. Because of the religious background of suicide and all these things, they changed the murder-suicide scene. So they still haunt that house. Greystone Manor, the Doheny Mansion, they even have murder mystery night there where you could pay money and you can go like do this whole like dinner type of thing.
Right.
But that's a really creepy house to go walk around. And they say that they still haunt there. And Lucy still haunts there because she probably was mortified that her husband was involved in that and that murder suicide with this other gentleman.
Right.
So that's a creepy one.
Yeah, that one is a really tragic story, it sounds
Yes.
like. And again, it's not something that they really know what happened. And
No.
it's a good point about the suicide because of religion and I think also insurance these days.
Yeah.
I think that can affect getting insurance from
Yeah.
somebody. I'm not sure if that's across the board anymore, but the religious stuff is still there. There's some people that really, or some religions that really don't want you to commit suicide. It's like you're kind of
And
kicked out.
he wasn't buried in their family plot. And the one thing that's to this day that's weird is they are buried in the same cemetery with only yards from each other.
Wow.
Yeah. And Doheny still gets flowers, but Hugh doesn't get flowers. But there's a huge, like, really nice gazebo looking for Doheny right there. So, but you can just drive up to that house at any time and go walk around, act like you're one of the Gilmore Girls and hang out. I have pictures of them when they were really little running around the grounds, and it's a neat place.
Yeah. It sounds neat. I've
really
never been
neat.
there. That's so many places to go in LA when it comes to history and hauntings.
Yeah, be a tourist in our own town. It's fun, you know?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're lucky that way.
Yeah, we are, because Hollywood is right down the street. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's really neat. So that was the and I talked about the Weatherford Hotel, about the room 54. Okay, so also there is the San Carlos Hotel that's in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, and a lot of movie stars stayed there back in the day, like Mae West, Marilyn Monroe, Clark Gable, Carole Lombard. They actually have these suites still set up for them that has their names and stuff. You know, I stayed in the Marilyn Monroe suite one time. It's really, really neat. And they have a ghost haunting there who, in the 20s, she jumped off the roof of the 7th story after her and her bellboy boyfriend broke up.
Her bellboy boyfriend.
Her bellboy boyfriend. Yeah. And when you go up there to the hotel and you ride the elevators and you get out, there are actually the news clippings of the suicide, of the ghosts, and all the news channels, and everybody goes out there. They still see her. They see her, the woman in white, and she doesn't talk, she doesn't say anything. They just see her up and down the halls and stuff like that.
And that does seem to be one of the, I guess, archetypal themes of love and death is a breakup.
Of course.
And one wonders why a breakup is that dramatic when you think about it. I mean, it does seem like you can't live without that person, but that is probably an unhealthy romantic tie. But it's very common for all of us to at least feel that, even if we don't act on it.
Breaking up is hard to do.
Yeah.
And there wouldn't be so many rock and roll songs and all these things dedicated to breaking up and all these tragedies and things of love. And I mean, some of the greatest rock and roll songs are about that, breaking up and getting
It is not
on,
just
you
young
know?
people. You think it's
No.
only young people, but it's even older people.
Oh, imagine being with somebody for 40, 50 years and then your whole world, just everything you've ever known. Yeah, it is hard. That's
Yeah.
why a lot of these, stories and stuff, they create the residual hauntings that are played out over and over and over again because of that. And the San Carlos Hotel, I mean, every single floor, there's something dedicated to the lady in white because she did do that. And she was only like 22 years old.
Yeah.
Her whole life ahead of her. And, that's just so tragic and so
Yes.
sad that she took her life over something like that,
And jumping off a building is really dramatic.
It's brutal.
Yeah,
like,
I
just
mean-
the impact, just, like people, they do that off of the Golden Gate Bridge too, and that's a dramatic way to go out.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's not like just taking a lot of pills or,
No.
and
Right.
it's a very violent way.
Right. Have you ever been down to San Diego?
I have not been to San Diego.
So there's the other one, she flung herself off the roof of the Hotel del Coronado. Her name is Kate Morgan. She's another one that her boyfriend broke up with her, and she decided to end her life at the Hotel del Coronado. That's a beautiful hotel, by the way. And you can get out of your car, walk around. You don't necessarily have to stay there, but you can go there anytime. And, there's a lot of stories about Kate Morgan and her suicide down there. And people see her on the beaches. And she
Is
died.
that in Craig's book? Maybe it is.
Maybe it is.
I don't know. Sounds familiar.
I need to
me.
buy Craig's book. Craig,
Yes.
I'm going to get your book.
It's a great book.
Right?
It
I
is.
need that book.
Yeah.
But, it might be.
Yeah.
But, they say they see her. They see her walking the beaches.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so tragic, these young women. And I imagine there's, young men too, but you more hear about the women.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't know it's because, love has been associated with women or because love is considered to be a feminine energy. Like,
Probably.
it's
Yeah.
and associated with that and women embody that, maybe,
Yeah.
but not that men can't.
And the romance aspect of all these things. And
Yeah.
when that's gone, they feel like they can't live anymore. So they go to these extremes. How extreme is that? You throw yourself off of buildings or hotels. Like, wow.
Yeah.
That's really sad, and then, but those are the big ones, the ones that I've been to, because I've been down to Hotel del Coronado. I've never stayed there, but I've been there, and then you hear of like, another one, Marilyn Monroe. You hear of so many places that she haunts, and she wasn't very happy in life. She was used by everyone around her, and and then the scandal of her with the JFK and Robert Kennedy and all that stuff, and they say she still haunts her house too, and she died because of that. Her
I
affair.
think that the little bit I know about her, because I definitely like her too, is that, she was a gorgeous woman who was also bright and intelligent and was not taken, I think, seriously because of her kind of effervescence personality.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
she was a Gemini, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think, that era for a woman like her would be really difficult. I mean, it still
Right.
is for women in movies and films, but not like
Right.
at that time,
Right.
You get typecast a certain
She was
way.
completely typecast as
Yeah, and she was
a
very
dumb
funny,
blonde.
too.
She was.
Yeah.
And she took her craft serious, just too
Yeah.
bad that she just liked her booze and her pills a little too much,
Yeah.
and they still don't know what happened to her. I mean, they say accidental suicide, but they don't really know.
Yeah, that's true. That's
She's another one, and because she was in love with the president, and her singing "Happy Birthday" to him. If I was, the wife, I wouldn't be too happy about that. Her coming out in that dress that was sewn on, and she was dead right after that. So that's another one, tragic love story. Yeah.
Yeah, the presidents and their ladies.
Oh yeah.
And probably men, too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
All kinds of affairs with powerful people, I think. And
Yeah.
seems to be part of the job almost.
Yeah. It seems like it does go with the job description. They can get away with it, or they try to get away with it.
Well, I think, too, whenever you have a position of power in terms of what love attracts, is, a lot of people are attracted to power.
Yeah.
And charisma. And, of course, JFK had tons of charisma
Yes.
and power.
Yes.
And, that was like an archetypal period in American history. Though some people hate the Kennedys, but
Right.
my parents loved the Kennedys. But they represented these bigger forces, I think.
Right.
You know, they were all caught up. I think when you're caught up in archetypal energies, you have to be careful not to, I guess, embrace it. And remember, you're human,
Right.
or you can sort of be taken out by the forces in a sense.
Yeah, well, they say, Jackie was not happy at home. She was a chain stoker. She was just miserable in the house there, home, even with her kids. She was sad. She was a very sad person. He was always gone, womanizing.
Yeah.
So, and Marilyn was the most prolific, of course, of all of them that he was probably with. And she's just a famous movie star, and that's how she ended up right after that affair. So, love.
Yes. Well, she's a good example of kind of a ghost of somebody who involved in love that everyone still connects to. I mean, she's still as popular as ever.
Of course.
And there were other gorgeous movie stars and
Right.
film stars, but there's something about her that people latch onto.
Maybe her
as a-
tragedy, just the fact that, she was raised in the Holly Grove orphanage. Her mother had bipolarism. Did she know who her dad was? I'm not sure if she knew who her dad was, but
I'm not sure.
you never hear about him. You heard about the mother having bipolarism and all this stuff. And and she would, I guess the story is she would look at the tanks and be like, I'm going to want to be a movie star. And she did it, but she just was used by everybody, and her husbands and all these things, And even, 20 years after she passed, Joe DiMaggio put roses on her grave every week, right? Like twice a week he had a contract.
Right.
That, he loved her. He blamed all the movie people, didn't have anybody at her private funeral and all this stuff. So, yeah.
Well, it's a tough business, that's for sure, the movie industry. From what I can tell from doing readings for all kinds of people, from
Right.
actors to producers to writers, it's not an easy industry at all. It's never been.
No.
You have to love it.
Yeah.
And of course, it's full of all kinds of egos, and I think anything creative has that shadow, the ego.
Yeah.
Any kind of music industry.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to mention here, this might be a good place, is the thing I wanted to bring up as far as for the topic of ghosts and love is this. I read a book a couple about maybe about 4 years ago. It was called The Ghost Bride by Yangtze Chu, Cho, and it was based on the culture of ghosts and marriage in the Chinese tradition. Also, I guess in France they do this too, but a ghost marriage used to be where if two young people died unmarried, the families would get together and marry them because they feel like that they were not at peace. So it used to be just two dead young people helping to pacify ghosts and spirits, which of course is really important in a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
And so, but nowadays it's gotten really creepy because of the idea, first of all, there's more Chinese men unmarried because there's more Chinese men than women. There's,
Right.
I think it's like 22 million more.
Wow.
And so now that they want to marry, sometimes you marry a live man to a corpse of a woman. And there's a big business in digging up dead female bodies.
Wow.
Which is, and there was one even example of someone murdering someone for that. It was like some sort of two people that were
To
disabled.
have the corpse.
Yeah, to have the corpse. But the money is a lot. It's like, I'm going to get it right. I got this from an article by, let's see, Grace Tsoi, Tsoi, China's Ghost Weddings and Why They Can Be Deadly. It was in BBC Chinese, August 24th, 2016. And she writes that the corpses go between 30,000 to 50,000 yen, which is 4,500 to 7,500,000, which is still a lot probably, and even up to 100,000 yen. So that would make it closer to, about 15,000 a body.
Wow.
So that's really
Disturbing.
But what's interesting, you can see where some of these things come out of real life situations. So you think sometimes how does a cultural thing start? In this case, it starts from a belief system that, first of all, the dead that aren't married are unhappy and unsettled, and they'll haunt people, so we
Right.
want to pacify them. But then it comes into, there's a necessity that is being fed.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
The rituals of death versus, so it's kind of a living and dead ritual. But anyway, I was kind of shocked about the digging up of the bodies. I thought, oh my God, that's going too far.
Wow. Well, isn't it over in China that they didn't want to have baby girls?
Yeah, there was an infanticide.
So now that's happening now. There's
Yes.
a shortage.
Yes.
And they should have just let human life play out, but they didn't. They wanted to play God, and now look at what they're doing. They're into necrophilia.
Yep.
So that's creepy.
Yeah, I thought it was really. I think that the beginning tradition doesn't seem to bother me because it's just kind of, it's kind of a ritual of pacifying the dead. And there's a lot of that in different traditions.
Yes.
How do I pacify
Yes.
an uneasy spirit, And I think it's fair to say if a young person dies in general, there can be unresolved
course.
things like they didn't to
Yes.
lead their life,
Right. Yeah.
So I wanted to mention that custom, I guess you call it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and there's other customs too where they dig up the dead once a year and redress them and change their clothes and everything else. So we're the ones that just, like we've talked about before, Western civilization, we just bury our dead and be done with it. Others still do these customs.
Right.
And yeah, that's their religion, that's their side of the world, that's what they do.
Yeah.
I'm kind of fascinated in it, some of it, how they do this. I could never take up my grandmother and change her clothes. Like, how they do that is just, I don't know.
I think I could if there was no flesh involved. If they had all bones, maybe.
Okay, that would be a little bit different. Yeah, but I don't want to see that. Exactly.
So maybe they do wait till the body is completely deteriorated.
Some of them look like mummified.
Oh, okay.
I've seen where they do that.
Right.
I don't know if it's in the Philippines or what, but it's somewhere. And they change their clothes every year, and they like sit them up, and yeah.
That's amazing. It's very Egyptian-like.
Yeah.
Except I think the Egyptians would leave them alone.
Yeah, I don't think they would. Yeah, because the Egyptians, they would put curses that if they were to be disturbed, then you would the curse would attach to you, and
Right.
all these wrong things would happen. So that's where that stands. But yeah, these cultures, it's just a trip, and to read about it and to go into it,
Now, I'm curious, did you happen to come across any, and you may not have, stories of someone that was in a relationship that died and haunted their mate afterwards? I think that's the stuff of movies.
You know what? We were at work the other day, and I was asking people about this, kind of like, and I was like, where do you think that somebody that would haunt somebody else, right? And you know who I thought of myself was Nicole Brown. If there was to be anybody that would come
right.
back and haunt somebody, it would be her.
Right.
And OJ.
Right.
And to seek her revenge if he did it, right? And no one ever talks if that place is haunted. I've driven by it and got out of the car and walked by it once. It was just creepy to me. And I did that at night one time. But
That's a good one, though.
that's one that I was like, no one's ever talked if she haunts that condo.
Sure.
And that is brutal.
Right.
I know you've never seen the pictures, but I know you probably have. And wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a good example of that. Because I think I certainly could see that happening.
I could too. I don't know if I haven't really heard a whole lot of it, but that's the one that I would think of LA culture and all that stuff. That's just so tragic, horrible death like that,
Now this is sort of on the topic, but it's also connected to definitely romantic love. Is Ted Hughes, both of his wives committed suicide in the same way. So Sylvia Plath, the poet.
Sylvia Plath.
And then I forget the name of the second wife that he married. She did the same kind of suicide, though you could say it was like trying to imitate. But what are the odds of being married twice to people that commit suicide in the same way? I mean, it does seem really strange.
You would think he's like they call the women the Black Widow, but almost the same sense as that. And we know Sylvia Plath, what she did. Did she tape up the door and then put herself in the oven?
Yeah,
she did, right? Her little kids were in the next room.
She didn't want her children to. It was a very cold day in England. Mm-hmm. She had just written, I think, most of the poems in Ariel. She was probably spent, like literally spent, and it was cold, and she didn't have much money.
Right.
And
her husband had left her.
And she'd almost died when she was a teenager trying to commit suicide.
She had tried a couple times. Yeah. She was so, the glass jar, all
Yeah.
these things, you know, and yeah, she succeeded.
And then, but she didn't want her children to.
No.
But it's a pretty tragic thing. And I mean, they did seem to really love each other in the beginning, and
Right.
but they had that kind of ruthless, passionate relationship, you know. And he would write her a love poem every year.
Really?
And I used to really dislike him.
Well, to
until I
this
read
day-
those poems.
And-
And he wrote after she died. They were really actually beautiful. A lot of those
Right.
poems are really beautiful.
And they, on her grave, they cross out Hughes. They've done that a lot because
Yeah.
because he's the one that caused her death and caused her so much pain and heartache to do that, to commit suicide. And, you know,
I didn't know that they crossed out his name.
you could look it up.
Wow.
They show it. They're always crossing out his name on her grave. So, yeah.
She's kind of like, in her own way, the Marilyn Monroe of poetry. Like
Yeah, she
a lot
is.
of
Tragic.
I've got, first of all, she's a brilliant poet, and
Yeah.
but I have read a lot of her biographies, and
Right.
it's kind of like Marilyn Monroe. You get fascinated,
Yeah.
because you want to try to understand how someone so talented,
Yeah.
and brilliant, this happens to them. You know,
Yeah.
that's that. But it was really around a love story, if you think about it.
It was. Sylvia Plath did, yeah, because of her husband leaving her.
Yeah.
And she was just so broken. And if you've ever been through a divorce, you know that you feel like you're going to die. But you don't. You get through it and you keep on going, you know. But some people can't. They don't have the strength within them to do that, you know. And that's the sad thing about it. They feel like there's nothing left for them. That's almost like, you know, what if he gaslighted her and told her that, you know, no one will ever love you. You'll never be with anybody, you
Right.
know, type of thing. And she believed it because she didn't believe in herself.
Right.
And that's what she did. And it's so tragic, you know, and people still talk about her and write songs about her, and they still go to her grave. Yeah, you gotta look that up. You gotta look up the picture. They always cross out Hughes.
I'm
They
gonna
do.
look that one up. And
Yep.
that it's some. I definitely have some people I want to go to their graves just because of respect for them, and that
Right.
would be one. I would say
Yeah.
that would be a good one.
Yeah, definitely. People leave a lot of pens there. If you've ever seen the pictures,
yeah.
there's like a whole thing of pens there and different stuff. And I really want to go see, because like I've always had a thing, you know, I was the same age when like Brittany Murphy died. And I've always wanted to go to her grave. And you know, her and Simon, they died like really close to each other in the bathroom underneath the same exact pretty much circumstances up at that house up there in Hollywood. You know who Brittany Murphy was, right?
Sort of.
She was in Girl Interrupted.
Oh, okay, yes,
and
okay.
I think she was in 8 Mile with
Right.
Eminem. She was in a couple things,
Right.
you know. And she was Luann on King of the Hill. Mm-hmm. So, but she died really young, 32, tragedy, just died in her bathroom. They said it was like pneumonia, but they also said it was like black mold. And then her husband, who they said that he kind of started hooking up with the
Oh, yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
and some weird stuff was going on like that. And then he died right after,
Right.
and they're
Now I
buried
remember
together.
that, yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
That is a weird one.
You know, like, what do you mean black mold? What do you mean pneumonia? I guess, yes.
But them both.
But then both within months' time.
That is a little.
They both died.
Yeah.
You know, that's yeah.
What do you think of this topic, Dylan?
That's a little strange.
That's one way to put it. Yeah, it is. It is. My next road trip, which I only took Dylan when he was in utero, to the Winchester Mystery House. So you know that house is built out of grief and out of
Wow.
love.
That sounds like a song.
I know I should. I'm a poet and didn't know.
You are.
So, you know, Miss Sarah Winchester, her husband died at a very young age, and then her baby only lived 40 days.
Aw.
I know. And she was told by a psychic medium, I don't remember, like Boston or something like that, but to come to the West and to keep building to appease the spirits of the Winchester Mystery Rifle. Now, there's so many stories and movies and all these things about the Winchester Mystery House, right? But the thing that is like about it is her grief, because that was a Victorian, you know, she always dressed in all black. She mourned her husband and her baby till the day she died. And she never let the construction end. she completely just poured her grief into this house. And these little oddities of the doors opening up or the door to nowhere that falls down, these could have been just like construction blips. Like she didn't know, but us looking into it is like, oh, she was crazy. But I mean, just think about it. She was worth like nowadays like $700 million.
What?
The money just kept pouring in.
Wow.
And she just kept building with the finest of the fine. And she just had so much money up to her ears. That's what she did.
Right.
She was really eccentric, you know. And in the end, this is like, you know, the whole love story. In the end, she would always go down to the basement. And they show you this huge safe, right? And in the end, the only things that were there that mattered to her was a lock of hair of her babies and a lock of hair of her husband's.
Oh.
That was it. There were no gold bars. There were no bags of money. There were no riches and jewels. It was the hair of her family members. So that's really tragic love, you know, but
Sure.
I want to take the kids up there just to see it because it's just beautiful architecture. But that's a really tragic love story too for her. You know, she lived alone. She never remarried. She just put all of her money and everything into that house.
How long did she live?
I mean, she lived for a long time. I don't have it written down right there, but she did.
That is a long time to sit with all that.
She did. And she was very eccentric. The movie is so farce. I didn't care for it because I know the real about it, but you know, that's Hollywood's take on it. And she sat there on it, and she was so strange. She had to look at all of her help, as in like she had windows on the bathroom doors.
On the bathroom doors?
Yeah.
Okay, that's...
Yeah. It's weird. She had to...
I wouldn't want to use the bathroom there.
No, I would feel so uncomfortable. And she had to keep a lookout on all of her people. And, you know, she was a hard person to work for, but she paid you good. And she just around the clock. You know, when the big earthquake hit up there, they couldn't find her because she spent the night in a different bedroom every night because of the spirits.
Oh, wow.
And she would go into the middle of the house with her planchette board, and that's where she would draw her plans up every night at midnight to 3 or something like that.
So she was contacting the spirits.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's to say. Yeah. With her planchette board, and then she would get the plans for the next day, and that's what she would do. So yeah, but that house was built out of grief for her husband and her baby.
Did she say who she was contacting ever?
They said that because it was the gun that, won the West, it killed everybody and all the animals and everything. She was trying to appease the spirits.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm going to take them up there soon to San Jose.
That's a really interesting story, actually.
Yeah, look it up.
Yeah.
That house is beautiful. Even if you don't believe that it's haunted, go to it, pay the money, keep it going, keep it alive, keep seeing it, you know? And they started tours on it, maybe not even 4 months after she died. Her niece just straight sold everything, got rid of it, and sold it off, and they started doing tours.
So a tour guide bought it?
I don't know if it was a tour guide or the city.
Or the city?
Yeah. Something like that, but they just started doing tours right away of it.
Huh. How do you feel about that?
The haunted
do you
house.
think that was a good idea?
No. I don't think Sarah wanted anybody in her house, and there's only a couple pictures of her ever taken. So that's a trip, huh?
That is a trip. Yeah, that's a real argument for making sure you have a goodwill. If you don't, because what relatives you can do to whatever you have created in life, whether it's a business or home, you may not approve of it.
No, and they say they still see her, but then people say that they don't. People say that they use that as the marketing ploy to say that it is the haunted house. You know what I mean? So,
I assume that paranormal shows have gone there.
Yes. Actually, Houdini went there to try to bunda.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And a guy stayed there for almost a month to try to kind of debunk it too. So, I don't know. I mean, if Houdini goes to your house, there's something going on there.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah, he was a character.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah, and Bess, there's a love story right there too. I didn't even think about that. Houdini, Bess always tried to contact him on the top of the Knickerbocker on Halloween, and they had their own code word that if he was to come back he would say this code word, and she did it every Halloween.
But did she ever heard anything,
No.
right?
She never did.
Yeah.
And she kept trying, though. She never gave up.
Yeah, that's interesting too. One could argue that's proof that there isn't an afterlife, or that maybe not every spirit knows how to contact the living.
Right.
It could go either way.
Mm.
I mean, people
Yeah.
have a hard time communicating in life with each other.
Right. How are you going to communicate after you've gone to the other side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, people hold his seances. I've been to seances. I've had my grandparents come through and stuff, but he never, the secret word was never said. And he lived up there in cursed Benedict Canyon. They say that canyon is cursed.
Yes, that one has quite a story because, David Oman shared some
Yes.
of in his book. There's some history of it too,
Yeah.
with the Native Americans and
Right.
things like that over there.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it's definitely an intense area. There's a lot of places. That's why a lot of indigenous people from many cultures, they like to pacify the spirits before they build. They have,
Right.
like, I know the Tibetan Buddhists do that when they were building the monastery. They do a big ritual to pacify. They call it the local spirits.
Okay.
And because a lot of times when people do construction, they say that sort of rouses spirits. And this is to, stop the hauntings ahead of time. And
Right.
Again, the European Westerners, for the most part, don't take the time to do that. We're always
No.
rushing everywhere and trying to get
Is that
things
why
done.
we build over Indian burial grounds
That
and we
too.
build over these things, and then we wonder why things are being conjured up in that
Yes.
sense? Because well, David Oman's house, there's an Indian that was right there
Yes.
too. So
Yeah.
besides the tragedy of the murders, so yeah.
Yeah, so I think because it's done in so many cultures, there's something to it. Whatever.
I believe so, too.
Why would so many cultures do that?
Right.
And I always find it fascinating when you'll read stories about like someone that's lived a long life together, two people, and they've been married, and how whoever survives will still talk to the person. I've read that in different books, where
Yeah.
they literally every morning they talk to the person,
Yeah.
and I think that's a really, even if it was imaginary, I think it's a healthy way of
I witnessed it with my
Coping.
grandfather. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did. My grandpa used to talk, and you know how they always say when one goes, the other one's going to follow right behind. And they do. They usually do. If they're married for so long together, it's like that whole phenomenon of like dying of a broken heart.
Yeah, I think Michael has something to add here.
So funny, talking about the following close behind, and that definitely happened in my family for sure. When I was young, my mother passed away first from a heart attack when I was 21. She was 50 when I was born, so I was a more, came as a surprise late in life. But she passed away of a heart attack, and then her brother died of a stroke 3 days after she did, my uncle. And then 3 weeks later, my dad passed away from a heart attack. So I got to spend the whole month at funeral homes. So you're right. And I think, and what's really interesting statistically is that men don't survive the loss of a long-term mate as well as women do. Women tend to be stronger. Women tend to move on better. So that's an actual statistic. So, but it's really true. And I think also, I've often given this advice to clients too. If one of your family members does pass away and you want the other to hang around, make them feel useful. Ask them advice even if you don't need it, and tell them how much you value and treasure them, and make them feel, that they still have a mission or a purpose. And I think when people sometimes feel their purpose is fulfilled, their partner's passed on, the kids are grown, don't need them, I think it's just easier to let go.
Yeah, and then tell him about how your father died, because that's kind of extraordinary, like what he did before he died.
Yeah, it was really kind of cool in the sense that my mom had passed away, as I said, and I stayed home with him for maybe a week or so. And then he went, and he'd had several major heart attacks, so it wasn't like, he wasn't supposed to survive. The last one, the doctor told us to make arrangements, and he was a stubborn old guy. He was a fisherman, and he would crawl out of the hospital bed, and he would stand up and hold on to the rail, and he didn't even know where he was. And the nurses couldn't pry his hands loose because he was strong as an ox. And they'd say, what are we going to do? And I said, I guess we're going to leave him, and when he's tired, he'll get back in bed. And he would crawl over the rail and get back in bed. So the doctor said he wouldn't survive, and 3 weeks later, he was splitting wood in the back of the house with an axe. So That's how tough he was. And then, as I said, Mom passed away, and I stayed home with him for about a week or 10 days. And then he went to the South Shore part of Nova Scotia where he was born. He visited his family, went to church that Sunday to see his family, went home, laid down, and 30 minutes later he was gone. He just said his goodbyes, and then he departed. So that was my dad.
He willed himself to die.
He did.
Yeah.
He really did. I feel like my grandfather did too after my grandmother.
It's totally understandable because to be together for so long, first of all, the bonds, the history, the energetic bonds, the emotional bonds, and there's a physiological thing that happens as well as emotional because of all the energy bodies we have, the subtle body and that you're just bound together. And I don't think we understand that, how that's severed. And I can see why people do that. I remember seeing there was a kind of a beautiful story. It was, I think, a Chinese couple, and they were very old, and I think the husband died first, and then an hour later she died.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't be without each other. It was like, I know it was within the same day and everything. And and I said, in a way and they lived a long life. So, and it seems like they didn't die tragically in a sense of violently or something. So in a way it was kind of romantic in a weird, it's kind of romantic in its own way.
It's lovely to them. That's what they wanted.
Yeah, that's what they wanted.
You know, they didn't want to be on this earth without each other.
Yeah. No, you don't think of romance sometimes with older people, but in some ways it's actually more romantic because you've spent so much time together and you've seen so much. And some of these people like that are 90 or 90, they've gone through different eras together.
Yeah, they have.
All the history.
Everything together.
Yeah.
And to watch your families grow and to watch your kids have kids and all these things that you know, they stand there basically and look at their huge family like, I did that.
Yeah.
Together. So, you know, and nowadays it's all like, you know, the social media and the phones and all these things. And I see love personally because I'm a server, I'm a waitress, and people aren't talking anymore.
Oh, I know.
They're looking at their phones. They are not speaking. They don't talk. And it's very nice to see a couple that has their hands together and they're schmoozing and they're talking and all, you know, it puts a smile on my face like, okay, that's cool. You know, they're into each other. Then you see the other ones that don't even speak. Nothing. They're like, wow. Not a word.
Or
I see it all
breaking
the
up
time.
with texting is terrible. But I agree, and I also feel like there's little romances that people miss that when I was growing up, just to meet someone, you know, the guys would have to come up with some really original lines, and some of them are really kind of funny, the way that they, and that you kind of miss those moments that even if nothing ever happens, I actually
Missed
treasure.
Encounters,
the encounters I've had, some of them really kind of funny and some
Right.
kind of nice, but it just wasn't the right person, and that, you know, and then we also grew up a time where people wrote notes and letters. Even in classes, we would write notes to each other's, and, you know, I have some of those notes.
The love letters, you know, people, we need to bring back the love letters, people. Let's bring back the love letters and bring back that.
In paper, it's not the same in email. It's not the same, a card.
To write it
paper,
down. And
you carry it around. I have things from when I was little. I have Valentine's cards.
Yeah, I do too. I carry around all that.
You know, it's
stuff.
it's very soulful.
Yes,
and,
I agree.
And that's what, you know, we don't want that to die. I know it hasn't died with everybody. I know some people still
Not
do that.
completely,
but it has, a lot of it has.
It's the internet.
Yeah.
You know, it took away, the social media took away from being social.
Yeah.
Type of sense. And
because it's awkward. All of this is awkward. I remember what I felt like, you know, going to prom and how awkward it feels. And even as you get older, there's still very awkward moments and uncomfortable things as well as, but then you miss all the beautiful experiences and feeling touched by somebody, you know.
Right.
And you just don't get that. As much as I value what social media can give for us, there is a big loss. And we know because we know it. And this is where I hope it'll eventually people get nostalgic or younger people come along and say, hey, wasn't that cool that those old folks used to do that?
Yeah, Dylan, tell your friends.
They're cool old folks.
We used to write love letters. I still do once in a while. Yeah.
So I want to give a shout out. We're getting closer to the end, but I want to shout out how people can contact you. You have a website. And that's Holly's Haunts, HOLLYSHAUNTS.com.
Yes.
It's a very nice website. And then on Instagram, it's holly.lindblom, Lindblom.
Correct.
And on Facebook, you're under your name, Holly
Yeah,
Lindblom.
I
Is there
am.
any other contact places?
That's it.
And
Those are them.
I highly recommend her photos are fantastic, and
Thank
just
you.
and then also the stories. I can't believe how many places. I still can't believe how many places you've been.
I do not have them all up
I
there.
know, but it's
I think
crazy.
I'm like an Instagram maybe a 96, 97, but I've gone way over, and it's fascinating me now because I'm like, wow, I've been to like maybe over 200 now.
You
Because I
have.
don't have all the pictures from when I was younger doing this.
Right.
You know, some of them are on old cameras, so I have to go back out to these places and take pictures now.
Right.
Because we didn't have cell phones.
Right.
We had the little disposables. So I have all those, and
Yeah,
there's
but-
just more and more to see.
Yeah.
You know, I've got St. Louis. I want to go to St. Louis, Missouri. I've got a couple places that I've got to see. The Vale Mansion. That's another haunted house I want to see. There's just so many that I'm going to go to again.
Oh, it's endless, and I'm going to make a list of some places just in LA I can go to easily.
Yeah.
That I just want to. I just have to make the time for it because
Yeah, it's all about time.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just putting the gas in the car and going to them. You know, you and David should totally go up to the Greystone Manor and walk around that. The grounds are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many places that you could just go to that are free that you
Yeah.
can see, you know, and haunted places and not haunted, and all those houses off of the 110 freeway, the Heritage Square, those are absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
I don't know if all of them have haunted history to them, but the history alone and how beautiful they are is the Hale House. It's a beautiful home to go see. So there's just so many architectural wonders out here, you know, if Hollywood doesn't keep destroying them.
Yes, that's the American way. I hate to say it's
'cause
not
they
just Hollywood, but yeah.
But they just keep destroying all these wonderful old architectural, works, and it's really sad.
It is sad.
It's sad.
Yeah. No, it's I don't understand that, but it
I don't
is.
either.
It's sort of I feel like at least it's an American thing because
Yeah.
Europe seems to treasure mostly
Right?
its historical places, but
Yeah.
America, I don't know why we just want to just wipe it away.
Out with the old and
Put
with
up
the
a
new.
parking
Yeah.
lot.
But yeah, it's also
Yeah.
usually really ridiculous things like a parking lot.
Yeah,
or,
like a parking lot or new condos.
Oh
or
yes, like we need more new
strip
condos.
mall. Like we need another laundry and nail salon. We don't need that. We want to look at that building that was there since the 1920s.
I think Michael has another comment.
Just real quick before we go, I've been checking our live chat, and there are a couple of people that we just want to acknowledge that have been chatting back and forth. And Dirty Old Redneck is one of them, and our good friend Joel, and Girls Playlist, and your friend Holly, Cindy Baca, and she says hello. So
Hi, Mama
I wanted
Cindy.
to acknowledge them before we
Hi, Eric.
end our
I see
show.
you guys, yes.
That's wonderful.
And thank you guys so
Thank
much for the live
you.
chat, and we hope that you had fun with the show. And I'm going to kick it back to you guys to take us home.
All right. So, any last thoughts about love beyond death from your own personal experience of investigating or thinking about the concept?
Be careful who you marry. You never know somebody till you divorce them. So be careful who you marry and be careful who you have children with and you fall in love with, because, that's forever. And just, love, you can't pick who you really truly love. You just can't. You fall in love with somebody and that's it. There's a person for everyone, they say, right?
That is true. The thing I've learned about doing readings for so many people, I feel a lot less judgmental at all about how people live their love life.
Right.
Because it's always between those two people.
Exactly.
And who knows if there's a karmic energy. I've read for people that are beating each other up. I've read for people that have stuck with someone who has some great addiction, but they love them. And it made sense for them.
Right.
And you can tell, I think, by how the person is relating to it.
Right.
If it makes sense to them.
Yes.
So I think love has many expressions, and even tragic love stories. Maybe some of them are meant to be.
Right.
We don't know. It's a
No.
mystery.
What's good for one person isn't good for the other. So we, like you said, we can't judge anybody of what they do or who they marry or who they love. So
Yes.
Cheers to love.
Cheers to love.
Cheers to love in the afterlife and all that jazz.
And in this life too, and
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on
Thank
the
you for
show.
having me
Thank
again.
you,
Thank you.
Dylan.
Thank you.
We're always happy to have you both here.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. We hope you really enjoyed it. And please like and comment and go ahead and tell your friends about us. It's a free show. We really appreciate the support. And we look forward to seeing you next week when we talk to Madame Zalima about love spells. Until then, have a great week.